A warm welcome to all the viewers. Today's session of Tourism and Hospitality Research, we will be talking about the principles behind fsQCA. In the last video, I introduced you to the concept of fsQCA, which is Fuzzy Set Qualitative Comparative Analysis, which is deemed to be a better method of analysis than multiple regression, which we usually conduct in SPSS, or the structural equation modeling, which we do in AMOS, or the VBSEM variance-based structural equation modeling in Smart PLS. Now, why it is considered to be better? Because in certain cases, we just don't want to have the relationship between the independent and the dependent variable as we do in case of regression analysis, but we are looking in for the combinations of independent conditions or variables which lead to the specific outcome. So there could be different combinations which I'll be explaining to you with help of an example. And fsQCA works on the principle of equifinality, asymmetry, and causal complexity between the conditions. So let us start. Say for an example, we have the outcome as being a class topper. So how can one be a class topper? There are different conditions for being a class topper. Maybe the student has a high IQ level. Maybe the student has put in more study hours. Or maybe the student is already familiar with the topic taught in the class. So all these three different conditions lead to the same outcome, which is being a class topper. They can occur in different combinations to lead to the outcome of being a class topper. Under certain circumstances, we can see that a student has high IQ level, puts in more study hours, but is not familiar with the topic, but it's still a class topper. Giving you one more example, a student might have a high IQ level, but doesn't put in more study hours and is not also familiar with the topic beforehand. So in this case, we see that only the IQ level will lead to the outcome, that is being a class topper. So I hope now you have understood how fsQCA works. What are configurations? Configurations are combination of these conditions which lead to the specific desired outcome. They are computed as 2 raised to power k, where k is the number of conditions. So in this example, you see that we have three conditions: high IQ level, more study hours, already familiar with the topic. So 2 raised to power 3 is 8. So that means we'll be having 8 configurations or the combination of conditions which may lead to the outcome of being a class topper. What are the principles behind which fsQCA functions? The first principle is predefined theoretical relationships. Through extensive review of literature and being an expert in our field of research, we should be knowing beforehand that what are the theoretical relationships laid down, and so that we can predict that outcome with the help of suitable conditions, suitable configurations made out of those conditions. So it's important to be well aware about the theoretical relationships. Second is equifinality. That means multiple paths leading to the same outcome. As I told you in the previous example, there could be 8 different combinations or configurations if we have 3 conditions with us, and these 8 different paths might lead to the same outcome of being a class topper. So that is equifinality. The third one is asymmetry. We know that regression or correlation works on the principle of symmetry. That means if one variable increases, the other also increases or decreases. So there is a relationship, there is a correlation existing between the variables of a study. But in case of fsQCA, they might be present or they might be absent. And they might have different effects on an outcome depending on the configuration which you are analyzing. So that means fsQCA can work on the asymmetrical relationships as well. The next is causal complexity. So again, unlike regression analysis, which looks in for the effect of independent variable on dependent variable, each individual independent variable, how does it influence the dependent variable? We get to know by looking at the p-value. If the p-value is significant, that is below 0.05, then we say that it has a significant effect on the dependent variable. If the p-value is above 0.05 at 95% confidence interval, which we usually adopt for conducting our studies. So if it is insignificant, more than 0.05, we say that the independent variable does not have a satisfactory statistical significant effect on the dependent variable. But fsQCA works in a different manner. It tries to find out the combination of causal conditions leading to the outcome, not just the effect of single independent variable on the dependent variable. Now, what are sufficient and necessary conditions? It is important to know these things before we actually dwell into the practicality of conducting fsQCA, which I'll be definitely sharing with you in the subsequent videos. But it is important to know for now what are the base factors, what are the principles which work behind fsQCA. fsQCA helps to identify conditions that are sufficient for an outcome to occur. What are sufficient conditions? If the condition is present, the outcome is likely to occur. As I told you in my previous video, the introduction to fsQCA, you might like to go back and look into that video wherein I have explained through example of baking a cake that what are the necessary conditions and what are the sufficient conditions to have a special cake outcome. And or necessary. What are necessary conditions? The outcome cannot occur without the condition. So if you don't have the basic aspects with you, the outcome cannot occur. Next is the truth table. fsQCA uses truth tables to represent all possible combinations of conditions and their corresponding outcome values. These tables are then minimized or counterfactual analysis is done to identify the most relevant configurations. And once we get the most relevant configurations, we assess them for the consistency and coverage, which is given to us by the software. How well a configuration predicts the outcome, that is known as consistency of that configuration. It is recommended that a consistency value greater than 0.75 is good. Greater than 0.8 is very good. Greater than zero point 0.9 is excellent. You might like to refer to the book by Professor Charles Ragin, which tells us about these thresholds. Coverage is how much of the outcome is explained by a given configuration. And the recommendation is at least 0.3, though some researchers take it to be 0.5 also. So this was all about the principles and the structure of fsQCA analysis. Useful resources are listed down here so that you can download them and study for enhancing your knowledge on the topic. We'll meet soon with a complete practical analysis done on a sample data in fsQCA software. I hope the video was quite interesting and useful for you. and you will definitely share it with your friends and faculty colleagues. Keep learning and keep watching for more. Thanks a lot.